Meantime, she could join. So, a very good afternoon and morning and afternoon, everyone. I am Chetna Naskar, Lead Coordinator, India Network for She Changes Climate, and your moderator for today's discussion. With deep gratitude, I welcome you all to this exciting webinar on women entrepreneurs in South Asia's energy transition sector, supported by Green Economic Coalition, IIED, and the European Union. We know that the world is accelerating towards a sustainable energy future, and women are playing critical role in advancing renewable energy solutions as entrepreneurs. Nonetheless, they continue to face systemic barriers in accessing finance, technology, and leadership opportunities. As the world prepares for COP30, it is extremely essential to highlight the work of women at the forefront of green transition, as well as the opportunities, challenges, and meaningful solution for gender just transition, especially coming from the global south. To discuss this, today we have the privilege of hosting our distinguished panel of experts who are not just innovating in energy sector, but are also breaking barriers, therefore creating pathways for future generation. But before I introduce our panelists, I would like to welcome Mamta Bargwari, Executive Director, She Changes Climate, to give a keynote. Over to you, Mamta.
Thank you so much, Chetna. Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to you all. I'm very excited about today's webinar as we hear from three remarkable young women leaders. We are still waiting for Kanika to join us. And I'm very excited to hear from them how they are shaping the green economy in South Asia. Their stories will highlight the power of female leadership in driving sustainable solutions. My gratitude to the panelists for your time. South Asia is on track to become the world's fastest growing region amongst emerging markets, with an estimated 5.9% GDP growth rate. Yet, 400 million people remain deprived in the region, facing challenges in education, health, and living standard. As you all are aware that this region is also highly vulnerable to climate change, with increasing heat wave, cyclone, drought, floods, and it is projected that this is going to cause 8.8% of GDP losses by 2100 at the current rate. Women bear the brunt, 14 times more likely to be impacted by climate disasters. This paradox of economic potential coexisting with deep vulnerabilities, it does require an inclusive and sustainable growth model. And women are central in this transformation. Yet in South Asia, it has one of the world's lowest female labor force participation rates, 32% compared to 77% for men. Closing this gender gap, it could boost the regional GDP by 51%, recent reviews reveal. So this is not just about social justice. This is about unlocking economic growth and resilience for all. As She Changes Climate, we believe that a gender-just transition is essential. Women must not be seen just as victims of the climate crisis, but as drivers of economic transformation. Our Gender Just Transition campaign seeks to redefine this narrative, to recognize women as a powerful force for sustainable economic growth. South Asia's political leadership, particularly in India, has shown commitment to just transition, creating opportunities to showcase women-led solutions that promote climate resilience. Across the region in South Asia, women at the grassroots, they are already leading sustainable solutions. In Bangladesh, for example, we have women-led cooperatives like Gramin Shakti, which is bringing solar energy to rural areas. They are training thousands as solar technicians and entrepreneurs. In India, Seva is doing amazing work, and one of their initiatives is the Solar Initiative, again, which is empowering rural women as solar entrepreneurs. In Nepal, indigenous women are leading forest conservation, sustainable land management. They're securing their rights over natural resources. In Pakistan, women entrepreneurs are driving waste to energy solution, developing biogas systems to promote clean cooking. In Sri Lanka, the Sudesha initiative has trained 15,000 women in mangrove restoration and sustainable aquaculture. These are just few examples to show that women are not just surviving the climate challenge, they are leading solutions with sustainability, resilience, and economic empowerment as lessons for us to learn. Today, we will spotlight young women entrepreneurs who are breaking the barriers in green industries. Green entrepreneurship is key to tackling climate challenges as it will foster innovation in technology, create new green job and economic opportunities. Creating an enabling environment for women entrepreneurs in this transition is a win-win for both economic growth and sustainable development. SCC, the She Changes Climate Gender Just Transition, is a call for action for greater investment, recognition, and systemic change to ensure women lead and thrive in the green economy. At She Changes Climate, we will continue to unify and demonstrate the true potential of women at the forefront, leading with resilience, vision, and impact. We are very grateful to the Green Economy Coalition and IIED for supporting this campaign. Thank you so much. Chetna, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mamta, for sharing such insightful information and pointing towards the critical time that we're standing and also the solution that is being led by this global South, especially South Asia. Now let's welcome our speakers. Ms. Kanika Verma, Associate Vice President, Development Alternatives Group. Kanika leads the Sustainable Enterprise vertical of the Development Alternative Group and is the Director of Indian Micro Enterprises Development Foundation, a Section 8 company that aims to build local ecosystem for green and inclusive entrepreneurship. She is passionate about social innovation and system change. Her current portfolio includes building social innovation platform to boost job growth for women and youth, enabling a just transition through locally owned energy solutions by women, and facilitating a transition of women's livelihood to move from subsistence-driven entrepreneurship to opportunity-driven entrepreneurship. A very warm welcome to you, Kanika. Next, we have with us Divya Gaur, Program Lead, Council on Energy, Environment and Water. Divya is a social impact professional focused on working towards augmenting positive socioeconomic and environmental changes at the grassroots level with a data-driven approach. At the council, Divya is a part of Powering Livelihood team that looks into the impact measurement and support, integrating gender inclusivity into the design of the initiative. In the past, she has conceptualized ideas at the intersection of women empowerment and sustainability, such as zero waste and sustainable clothing. She also supports social enterprises with focus on gender inclusion with respect to design and implementation on a pro bono basis. A very warm welcome to you, Divya. And last but not the least, we have Mariam Khalid, Head of Legal, Punjab Energy Efficiency and Energy Conservation Agency, Energy Department, Government of Punjab, and co-founder Women in Energy Pakistan. Mariam is an energy and natural resources lawyer with over 15 years of experience in leading law firms and an in-house counsel. She's co-founder of Women in Energy Pakistan, which is a professional network focused on streamlining the role of fostering the growth of women in energy sector. As chair of Lahore Hub, she advocates for gender parity and the importance of critical minerals in the energy transition. She's a big proponent of local manufacturing and creating a downstream industry for minerals to steer Pakistan towards energy security. She was nominated for the IVLP program in 2020 by the US State Department to participate in the US Best Practices in Energy Infrastructure. A very warm welcome to you, Mario. So without further delay, let me straight get into the discussion. So my first question to all of you would be, could you please share more about your work in advancing the energy solution in your respective region? And I would like to go with Kanika first. So over to you, Kanika.
Thanks so much, Chetna, and thanks so much, Mamta, for the opportunity as well as setting the context. I thought, particularly because we're talking about the solution to be integrated in South Asia, that we sort of are mindful of the context with with which you're talking about. And women in South Asia, um, they are basically in the informal sector. And any solution, any renewable energy solution has to take that context into mind because there are very strong livelihoods and jobs links to it. Small businesses in particular, if you look at it, I mean, informal workers would be about 70 to 80%, if just to look at broad data. 80% of small businesses would be informality, and in small businesses, women would be 90%, 90 to 95. That's a massive scale that we're looking at. So any kind of solution has to take that into mind that we're doing it. And that's what development alternatives does. We have our whole approach to an energy transition takes into mind the overall context within which the communities and particularly women reside. Hence, our principles in that sense is to look at energy playing a catalytical role in creating livelihoods where women can be at the forefront of the energy solution. And I think most of the examples that Mamta you were talking about speak to that. The second is we're always mindful of not connecting energy to just access, but looking at how do we put money in people's pockets. And this is a shift which for us, again, helps energy play that catalyst role. The third one, if I were to look at, is not only is the community and women extremely important actors, but also creating an enabling environment within which women and other stakeholders come together is extremely critical. So DA, for example, has been in the renewable energy space, just transition space we've been in existence for 40 years, working towards sustainable livelihoods. But I think the last 30 years would be focused on this area of work. We've gone from looking at enabling microgrids to help businesses, especially women, to become more greener. But the last couple of years, we've been consciously looking at how women can be really much more at the forefront. And some examples would include creating what we call energy constellations, Urja Mandalas, where women's group cluster level federations or FPOs, farmer producer organizations, would tie up with private companies, where the generation would be from the private company side, and the distribution where women, I think there is a lack of data, but women are known to be very good in terms of distribution and also in terms of collection. And the solidarity that comes with being part of these communities is a very important asset that has to be taken into account. So not only are these women using this for their own economic activities, where they've been able to increase their revenue from 40 to 48%. So for example, if they're just doing basic vermicompost kind of activities in a district in the state of Jharkhand, they have been able to move to 40% more revenue because now they are able to build larger infrastructure, food processing, even biochar as one of the examples. So they're really building circular models around it, but they're also greening other enterprises around them that are using the electricity. So such kind of multiplication models to women's safe mobility, energy-driven e-rickshaws, e-tuk-tuks, where again, a whole focus is on building an ecosystem. I'll get to talk a little bit more about that. So these are some of the conscious models that we're building where women are at the forefront. But yeah, I'll stop here, and in case we move to the other rounds, I'll get a chance to share.
Yes, thank you so much, Kanika. Divya, if you can now, take over.
Thanks, Chetna. Thanks, Mamta, and thanks to She Changes Climate for the opportunity. I think you've started with the most apt person, I would say, because Development Alternatives is a pioneer in taking forward the whole idea of just transition and keeping women at the forefront. And I think Kanika has very well put that context that majority of the women form the informal workforce. Even at farmlands, you would see that women are the ones who are leading most of the activities on the farm, right from irrigation to ensuring that the produce is in a good state, etc. So they do a lot of work, but it's mostly informal and at the back end. Very similar to how Kanika explained, in the sense that energy plays a catalytic role, is something that's what we've been doing at Powering Livelihoods, focusing more on the energy as for productive use and not just access per se, but how can access to reliable energy lead to income gains, and not just income gains, even in terms of social impact, which is reduction in drudgery, reduction in time poverty for women, how the integration of these livelihood applications, which are powered by solar, which are energy efficient, can have a positive impact on women. So this is what I have been trying to drive through the program I'm leading, called Powering Livelihoods at the Council. And where we started was that we identified that this is like a $50 billion market opportunity in India alone, for such DRE, or decentralized renewable energy powered livelihood solutions. And at present, we support about 18, 19 such solutions, which are like solar dryers, a multi-purpose food processor, a solar micro irrigation pump, or a subsea koti, which is like a small sized carrier which enables cooling for vegetables and fruits, etc., for vendors, which is portable, which is mobile in that sense. So we're supporting these technologies through our work in Powering Livelihoods, and then taking these solutions to the women on ground. And what's interesting about this program is that women are not just the users of these solutions, but they are also promoters of these solutions. So they're also at the forefront of selling these solutions or making them accessible to others in the villages or at the block level. So, for example, we've partnered with an organization called Sure, which is based out of Maharashtra, and they have about 100 solar sakhis, or Sure sakhis as they call it, spread over 100 villages, wherein these sakhis actually go and talk about how these technologies work. Right. And not just in terms of that this is the impact of the technology, you'll be able to reduce drudgery. If, let's say, you have a vertical fodder station, like a hydroponic vertical fodder station being run on solar, so you won't have to walk long distances to fetch fodder, etc. But they're also able to explain that this is how much you will be able to save in terms of you walking the long distance or using a vehicle which is run on diesel, petrol, etc. So that will be a saving, and then you're able to feed your cattle, etc. So they're also able to explain the economics of it. So they are more like business agents also of these technologies, and which is very reassuring in the fact that we're not just assuming the role of the woman to be just the user of it, or what is given to them they use it, but they're also promoting it, and they're at the forefront of taking the sector also forward. So these are some interesting things that we are doing on ground. Essentially, the program follows a 5A framework kind of an approach to promote clean energy powered livelihood technologies on ground. So right from awareness, where women are playing that role of peer instructor or being a peer demo champion in terms of taking these technologies to other women, from accessibility to affordability, where we are looking at affordable financing solutions for women. We've also currently just recently partnered with a P2P lending platform which reduces the interest rate for women, and so they are able to pay back as well easily, to policy convergence, where we're trying to bring the focus of policymakers on more gender inclusive policies, and also engaging with a Ministry of Rural Development too, because there's this huge network of self-help groups in India with about 10 crore women, right? So that's that opportunity as well. And beyond that, we also work with manufacturers or startups, as we'd like to call them. And we've been working also with them to enable gender-first policies in their enterprises. So they bring in more women, because when they're manufacturers, not a lot of women you will see are, manufacturing clean technologies. But through our support and strategies that we propose to them, they've been able to integrate women as well in their enterprises. So it's happening at all levels. And it is also very heartening to see the change. But yeah, we can talk more about it as we move forward. But this is about what we're doing at Powering Livelihoods.
Thank you so much, Divya, for sharing. Mariam, over to you now.
Thank you very much, Chetana. She Changes Climate. I'm really blown away by all the panelists. What we do in Pakistan with women in energy is slightly different, but we do have, a few startups that I will touch on as well because Divya spoke about them. What we're doing with women in energy is actually providing a platform, to women to kind of network and have access to mentorship. Because when we started this is back in 2018. This was a bunch of us, females working in the energy sector, and we would always run into each other in conferences and never ever see women. I'm sure you're all familiar with panels. Where are the women? And we knew they were there, but they just either weren't comfortable being given a spotlight or they just weren't there at the front. So that's what Women in Energy was kind of born with, that we want to have a platform where you have women connecting in the energy space. And bear in mind, a couple of years ago, there was an understanding that the energy space was only for the engineers. I'm a lawyer by training. A lot of my colleagues are policymakers. A few of them are economists. So we decided we kind of needed to have a network where all of us representing the interdisciplinary nature of energy needed to come together, discuss work opportunities, make it easy for each other. So we started off with a few activities like actually lobbying for women to be on panels, lobbying for women to be on public sector boards and private sector boards, that we needed women where decisions were being made. And we felt, because we were at a mid-career trajectory ourselves, and we knew with that came change, we felt if we made sure that there were women in the leadership positions, that change would trickle down. But then one of the core activities that we've also been doing the last few years is trainings. And I think that has been a real game changer, because we started training female engineers in the solar sector, on solar energy, giving them access to technical skills, but then also making sure they were on the field doing actual physical work, because that's where the real challenge came. A lot of engineers used to tell us, and it's something I can relate to as a lawyer as well, if you're not out in the field doing the work, you will never kind of make it to your top, to the leadership positions. And a lot of, the cultures that we all come from, it's very easy for people to confine you to office related work or more admin work, right? Or policy work, because you don't really have to step out. But this is something that all of us kind of advocated for, that we really need women to be out in the field, especially for engineers who are in technical field, because they're never going to make it to the top if they haven't come through this chain themselves. So these trainings have become really big now. Unlike some of you whose work seems to be focused, if I can say, in the developing areas or more in the rural sectors, we so far have been in the major cities, but it's in our plan to go into rural areas because we get a lot of interest from that. But then I'm sure we'll be changing our audience, because our audience so far has been engineers, but more than the technical skills, as I believe Divya also kind of focused on this, we've been giving them skills on workplace safety as well. Because this is something that we've been thinking about, that we're training these girls, but where are we sending them? Is the energy sector ready for them? Are these workplaces safe? Are there policies in place? Is the HR department, empowered to take independent decisions? Do they have policies in place that kind of monitor their trajectories? Because as most of you would understand, a lot of women enter the workforce, they spend about 2-3 years, and then they leave. Because there are, of course, challenges if they're going to get married. Can they come back to work? Is there maternity leave that's being properly implemented? And I can understand why that is one of also the major reasons that even in Pakistan, we have started to see female entrepreneurship in the energy sector come on the rise. Because a lot of women are realizing that they need to kind of run their own businesses if they really want to see the kind of true inclusivity, that they're envisioning. So that is something that we've been focusing on. And making sure that these girls have the skills, and then making sure that the companies they're going to, that is something we've been taking up with the private sector and public sector companies, are equipped. And not just hiring women for the soft image, because that is also, we're seeing a lot of that happening of late, that a lot of private sector companies and government sector companies, they want to look they're gender inclusive, because that has also become the requirement for a lot of grants in the development sector. But we have to make sure that that is being done in its true spirit. So that is what we work on.
Thank you so much, Mariam. It's like it started with so much powerful discussion, and it's true. I mean, we have this thing, we say that, climate change or it doesn't impact the half of the world. So when we talk about the solutions and inclusion, we also need to understand that, to mitigate this, handle this crisis, half of the world just cannot handle it. Wonderful discussion. My next question to all of you would be, what opportunities are there available for women in the energy transition sector in South Asia? So I would like Divya you to start with this question.
Yep, I would like to first say, Miriam, it was very, very heartening and inspiring to hear from you on the initiatives being taken in Pakistan. And also, I was just, just thinking how wonderful is this platform that we are connecting across boundaries and learning from each other. So, definitely quite grateful to She Changes Climate for this. In terms of opportunities, I think all of us, Kanika, Miriam, and I have kind of touched upon the kind of opportunities that are available, right? From, in the cities or in the urban spaces, within the workforce, when it comes to not just being in the administrative side, but also in terms of designing, creating, etc. So that is one opportunity, of course, for women to kind of um, take part in. And at CW, because initially a lot of focus of the think tank was on energy, and we did have a hard time finding women, and I think we still do when it comes to leadership positions. So we also kind of built this platform called Women in Sustainability, where we started tracking these indicators on how many women researchers we have, how many of the publications that we do are like first author, like the main author is a woman, and how many women leaders we have, etc. So just trying to create that platform as well for women. But yeah, there are opportunities in that space for women to be creators, to be designers, and not just in terms of being on the admin side of it. So that is one. And opportunities are both on both ends. So I have colleagues working in RE space, which are looking at rooftop solar, etc. I'm working on productive use of DRE solutions. So the entire sector presents itself a lot of opportunities. And again, at the grassroots level, we have women micro entrepreneurs. So I'll give you an example. In this village, in this area, Chamoli in Uttarakhand, there is a woman called Anju Bist. She started with purchasing a 20,000 solar INR 20,000 watt solar dryer to create a micro enterprise for herself. She wanted to kind of dry some of the commodities and sell. And now they have scaled up, and they've scaled it up on their own. They leverage their community investment funds that comes from it's a part of self-help groups that we have here, and now they have kind of leveraged some 60,000 INR as a revolving fund to get more solar dryers. And now she has started making those dal nuggets, dried malta, selling agarbattis, etc. So they are scaling up enterprise, and these are women at the grassroots in some village, very small village, which is hard to access. So there are these opportunities as well. And there is another example. Very recently, I visited this somebody in Karnataka, in Kolar district, called Nagaveni ji. She's in her 50s or late 50s, and she's running this experience center where she is demonstrating the technologies, how they work. She's giving trainings to people on mushroom cultivation, etc. And she has built this range of products, right from dried moringa to pickles to dried strawberries. She's also using a multi-purpose food processor to make soap and then supplying it in the local region. So these are some very inspiring stories of how what are the opportunities for women. So the opportunities for women are immense in South Asia across all levels, I would say, in the value chain. It is just that the ecosystem needs to come together and work on these opportunities and kind of create those platforms for women to shine through. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Divya. Very insightful. Mariam, if you can take over. And, yeah, thank you.
I think the best part I see about the energy sector is about how huge it is. I think even with Pakistan, we had a brand new policy come out a couple of years ago that kind of focused on on other technologies as well, because the focus so far in the last few decades, I'd say, has been more on solar and then wind. But then whenever we are conducting our trainings and we're trying to find placement for these girls, we're always encouraging them, look, waste energy is coming up. And we also have an entrepreneur in Karachi who is running her business. I'll share her name in the link as well. She's focused on waste to energy. And then similarly, I believe you mentioned minerals in my introduction as well. There's so much activity happening in the mineral industry because of the energy transition. So that area is also opening up for Pakistan. Then I work in energy efficiency, and I've seen how many women are entering the energy workforce now. With energy efficiency, you have electric vehicles coming in. You have so much work opening up in energy efficient buildings. There's so much work coming up. I really think the focus that I'm looking at for my organization is really one other area is to kind of open up these trainings to these disciplines, because we just don't want our focus to be solar specific, and that's really been the cream of the energy transition. But the opportunities that I'm seeing for women now is in these multitude of fields. I think the real challenge, I don't know if you would want me to focus on that separately, but the real challenge I see, as I said, was to ensure that the public and the private sector and the companies that are employing them, if they're not running our own businesses, because that's a separate stream, right? We are encouraging, one of our chairs based in Karachi, she actually is an entrepreneur too, and she runs boot camps, active boot camps, where she's kind of giving these young women the skills to understand financial inclusivity, to understand investment 101, to understand how to make these decisions. So I think the real challenge that I'm seeing is in the structure. And I think, I'm not sure if Divya mentioned the structure, impediments in the laws and the policies. That is, I believe, where, policing for us and advocacy for us will come into place, because there are plenty of opportunities. It's just about ensuring that women are equipped to take them, and then they kind of really make it to the leadership, because that is another challenge that we see. And that is where you need to make sure that these companies that are employing them have the right, policies in place to make sure that that is taken care of. But I also want to mention one example. I think one of you mentioned how disproportionate the climate crisis is. One of our members, who's a climate change lawyer, actually gave us this example of this crisis, natural crisis in Bangladesh, where he said a lot more women died because they were either really scared of coming out of their houses, or they were very reluctant of men helping them, touching them and helping them. So this is, I believe, a context that's very, much relevant to South Asia in particular, where the cultural impediments also come into place. So if I have to wrap up my thoughts on the opportunities available, I believe there are a lot, because this sector really is massive, and we need to ensure that the engineers or the lawyers or the economists that we're training kind of understand and make sure that they fully benefit from these opportunities.
Thank you so much, Mariam. Kanika, over to you.
Thanks, Chetna. I'm just sort of reflecting on the conversation and what everyone said, and particularly, she changes climate. I was just thinking about it, currently, market shapes behavior all the time, right? But we've all seen the fault lines that exist, and I think the future is in aspirations shaping behavior. And sort of Divya alluded to it. There are 100 million women in India itself that are connected to self-help groups or cluster level federations. And all across India, the conversations that we have been having are sort of, it's not the same thing. We have to stop assuming that women are weak and we have to help them. That mindset itself has to go through. We first create a solution, we first create an innovation, and then we say, oh, okay, let's see how we can include gender into this whole thing. And I think that has to sort of shift. The ask that we're getting, and this is in the rural spaces, the most rural spaces, that, oh, I do not want to do this very simple thing, income generating activity. I do want to do a construction business. Or where is the opportunity? In just the district of Mirzapur in sort of UP, Mirzapur, that's become famous because of the show. There are 115 women who are running e-rickshaws. That didn't emerge out of the space that, oh, we have a problem, but came from the space that we have to find a solution ourselves and we have to flip that question. And I think the movement has to be more towards that, on their strengths, whether it's the social capital or its resources, any kinds of skills that women have. And I think women are entrepreneurial in nature, and I think we have to sort of build on that. The second thing in the end, just if you look at the sector in itself, I think Mariam talked about it. There are many opportunities out there, but I think we have a little bit of an obsession with technology. I think technology has to be the means, and it has to be a given. Constantly, otherwise women are trying to race to find, oh, I have to innovate something, so I have to be in this sector. So I think there are lots of innovative technologies out there. If you were to just sort of build a broader landscape of not helping people go from just 1 to 10, but 10 to 100 of accelerating these technologies, there's a lot of things that women can be part of it. Roles that women can sort of play for it. Women are saying we don't want to be just participants. We do want to be owners of the solution.
Thank you so much. And I absolutely such wonderful discussion and whatever you said. And one thing I want to flag in here, Divya also mentioned, one of the way that we can really bring women into this, be the solution provider in innovation is, also tapping in the SHG that we have. It's a huge, we have around 10 crore SHG, and, a lot of women are kind of doing a lot of impact work through their SHG. You also have covered, along with the opportunities, a lot of challenges that are there as well. But I really am very interested to particularly know the challenges that you have encountered today, that you are, leading, and, you are such great leaders and showing the way to the future generation. But what challenges you have encountered, and what priority action or enabling conditions that you think should be there to address them? So, yeah, I would start with you, Mariam.
I'm going to mention two which are particular to me. When I joined the energy space, I was coming from a non-technical field. I'm a lawyer by training, and I was surrounded by energy and engineers and technical people. So it was quite a struggle to kind of make sure, you're in a conversation where you're also contributing and you're understanding what's happening. And especially when you're working on contracts, which are highly technical in nature, you know what's happening. So that is something that I kind of grappled with, because I felt there were not enough men who would be patient enough with you, who would sit down with you, who would break down things with you. And I think lawyers generally, we have relatively decent communication skills. It's part of our job description. But engineers that I kind of met felt didn't. They were very good with technical stuff, but they were not perhaps as good as breaking it down to you. That is also where women in energy came in handy, because then I used to sit down with female colleagues of mine who were engineers, and I would sit down with them and I was like, we need to make sense of this. That is one challenge. Another challenge I felt, and this happened fairly recently, and I'm really surprised it happened to me at my age as well. I think women need to have, and I don't know if this is a popular opinion, you need to have wing women, even if you're attending conferences or going for, any of these meetings, it's still very daunting to be the only women in the room. I don't know if any of you feel that. I still think, even, at this age, when you're a relatively senior person, I was at this conference where I was sharing a stage with some of the most senior men in the regulatory, landscape of Pakistan. And, once the conference was done, we were supposed to have lunch together. And literally, this was just me in a room full of 100 men. And I was thinking, what, the conference is done. I don't need to sit here and have lunch and do networking. But the organizer, one of the organizers who was a woman, she was like, absolutely not. You're here as one of the speakers. You will be here till the very end. And I'm very grateful that I had a colleague with me. And I was like, what, we'll do this together. realize if I feel this at such a privileged stage, at this stage in my life, it must be so much harder for women who are either not that, coming from a relatively privileged background, or who haven't really, been comfortable in kind of networking. And I'd also want to highlight one difference. I think India is far ahead in this. You see women being a lot more comfortable with public space. In Pakistan, it's still, you have to make an effort to kind of own your public space. So I think that's a challenge. That women, when even they know their work, they're a little more comfortable in kind of being shunned, or shunning themselves. So that's a challenge as a professional, that I still feel at times that I can do this, but it's okay if I'm not in the thick of things. So that is something that I always tell the trainees that we're training, that never ever miss out on opportunities. If you're ever going to be the only person, make sure you have someone with you. Just don't miss out on invitations, don't miss out on networking opportunities, don't miss out on speaking opportunities, just because you're daunted by the fact that it's still going to be literally a handful of women in a room full of men. So I think that's a personal challenge that I still find a bit odd that I face at this age, but because I felt it, I always make it a point to share it with others.
Thank you so much. And I think we all can relate with you. But there was a time when I used to think, why am I going? I don't know what to do even there. So I think that is something we all go through. Kanika, if you can please share your, experience.
Right. Thanks. I think Mariam's already sort of started the thing on limited visibility and representation. And, Mariam, it perhaps is true. India might be a little bit ahead in some ways. But, I've also worked with a lot of women entrepreneurs and leaders in South Africa and different countries. And I tell you, there's an inherent sort of thing which is very universal. There was a study done a couple of years ago where they put girls, and like 5-year-old girls in one room and 5-year-old boys in another room, and they gave them a toy which doesn't work, and the boys started trying to sort of fiddle with it, trying to work it out, and they came out and they said, there's something wrong with this toy. I'm not able to figure this out. And the girls came out and said, I can't figure it out. There's something wrong with me. So I think we're very, very good at putting the spotlight on ourselves and sort of, thinking that we're not good enough or we're not. And I think that has to sort of move. And it's a very universal DNA imprint, because what is it? We're also trying to create our own space in workspaces or landscapes that are not designed particularly for us. It's designed for the 50% of the population, and I think that's where we have to break through, and you have to tell ourselves. When I started getting represented, and I would ask myself, am I being invited just because I'm a woman in this panel? And I was like, no, I have to get rid of this question, because it doesn't matter why I'm here. But when I'm there, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to be as good as any other person in the panel. And that's what we need to do more and more often than we need to do. The second, which is, sort of taking the spotlight away from yourself, I do think that finance has to be reshaped much more. Whether it's keeping in mind the needs of women leadership, or it's keeping in mind where finance plays a role in keeping in mind, the needs of women, whether it's care economy, or it's keeping in mind the role that women is playing in terms of the energy sector. I think there has to be much more of innovativeness in finance to help women, especially the ones who have not in India or in Pakistan, many countries. I think we are following the credit score system of the West. However, that is not particularly suited for women who are not in the consumption economy. And I think credit or finance has to move more towards that. And the third is, of course, policy. And I think there has to be much more of deliberate policy systems which are suited for women, particularly for the roles that women play. Like I said, there's so much emphasis in policy on technology, but there are many other things that women can sort of do. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that you face, is that there's there's very little interface there. It's even in India, which actually has a very centralized DRE policy. It has a central DRE policy framework, but at the state level, if a woman is a consumer or a micro enterprise, there's actually very little support system that exists for women. And I think we need to be mindful of the gaps in policy, especially when it comes to women.
Thank you so much, Kanika, for flagging up such important points. And every word that you have said, I mean, it's just a reminder to us that yeah, we face all those things, actually, the challenges. Divya, now over to you.
Yep. I think this imposter syndrome is a universal thing, Miriam. I mean, within a part of this Women in Sustainability, we have this initiative called Conversations Among Women Leadership in CW. And imposter syndrome or not believing enough in ourselves is the topmost thing that always comes up. That how do I gain more confidence? How do I, and not just confidence. I think talking about what we are doing in our work and talking about our achievements. I think we often shy from sharing what big things we are doing, and we often question, oh, am I doing this? I mean, is it good enough to share also, etc. Whereas if you see in case of men, they're quite forward with terms of sharing that, hey, I've done this, I've been leading this program, I've been able to enable this. I don't know, I have not seen women talk like that this confidently about their achievements in public spaces, be it LinkedIn, be it in meetings, etc. So I think that's a universal problem, and we all need to work there. And this is where I feel, aspirations, the way aspirations are being shaped up, they have to start right from childhood. And maybe somewhere the education system in itself has a role to play. So as somebody who was getting into energy sector 4 years back, it was all technical, I was all confused. How do I learn this, etc. And this is technical, and right from the childhood you are kind of you hear like women are not good at maths, women are not good at science. So then that thing comes in when you are even trying to make an argument which is related to science or technology. Am I saying the right thing or not, right? So I think the way education system is, I know a lot of work is going on in terms of encouraging women to take up STEM related courses or STEM jobs, but a lot more work needs to happen. All the work around like opening up these job opportunities for women in this entire space of just transition or energy transition. I think a lot more has to happen on the other side also, where the institutions are encouraging or incentivizing for women to take up these courses as well. These have to also become aspirational among women. And that was one of the personal challenges that I faced. And second is, I think Miriam kind of touched upon it in terms of having that network where you feel supported. But probably what we've missed out here is having male allies. So it doesn't have to be just a room full of women encouraging women, but I think the room also has to have men who encourage women and are able to take our success or case stories across and sort of encourage others also. So we also need more male leaders coming up and kind of supporting the whole just transition bit. And I've been quite fortunate to have my boss like kind of constantly not seeing that gender as a this thing defining that okay, you can do this, you can do that. No, it's mostly it's just based on the merit, or it's just based on the quality that you bring to the table. So we need more male allies also, and I think the support of women has been very crucial to the journey that I've had so far in this space. And I think third one, Kanika did bring up on the financing bit, which is very important. But I think personally, if this question was to put up to me, I think this will be one is shaping of aspirations and how we can work with young girls more to make it aspiration for them to be a part of this sector. And second one being having these networks, but also having male allies, which really helps a lot.
Thank you so much, Divya. Such valid points. And I remember in the schools, like earlier, we used to have these craft classes where women would go and do some, wool and, some kind of sewing stuff, and men would be with all kind of building things. So these were there, but currently things are changing. So with the time that I'm seeing, I would like to open the floor now for a few questions from the participants. I have one question in the Q&A, and I would like to read it out. So this question is from Saskia, and she wants to know what are the main actions that a movement as She Changes Climate could do to accelerate women leadership in the green energy space? Is it working at the policy level or capacity building or bringing the different stakeholder together? So anybody can take the question. And before, I would also want to announce that participant can write their questions in the Q&A. And if anybody wants to ask a question, they can raise their hand and we will give you the access to the mic. So yeah. So
I think, Chetna, the question is more for the She Changes Climate team.
no, I mean, she wanted to know that what a movement like She Changes Climate could do to accelerate women leadership in green energy space.
Can I
So
come in
if
here a bit? Just to, I think it's a question from us to you, from our colleagues,
yes,
I think, because
yes.
the movement, the She Changes Climate movement is a collaborative movement, is the movement of all of us, and that is the intention. And so we would love to hear from you, the three of you, as to very quickly, and maybe we can follow it up later on. How do you see this movement contributing and adding value and giving you and strengthening your agency as women entrepreneurs to lead forward and create larger impact? I guess that's the question that we are very interested to know, how this movement can become a kind of binding factor. Yeah.
Right. So should I just sort of jump in? Yeah. Okay. So I have an interesting I think I have an interesting take on movements. It's actually one of my thesis topics because I think movements are made out of micro movements, and I think She Changes Climate could really showcase some of the real micro movements that are being made by women, and to sort of understand beyond just showcasing women leaders, which I think is absolutely necessary, but what is the process behind that change? What did it take to reach to that level? Much more learning, which can be decontextualized and put into different contexts. I think that would be absolutely necessary, because I think either women stay invisible in the space or the leaders become invisible. But I think the journeys and the processes are extremely important, so that it encourages or shows ways or give tools, create toolkits for other women to use to create their own journeys, not to follow someone else's journey, but to create their own journeys. I think that's one major contribution. I think the second is, which is sort of connected, but a little bit more disaggregated data in terms of who is getting. If you look at the space, it's actually the same organizations, the same social enterprises, the same founders who are getting the resources, and it's the same circle. How do you create more breakthroughs? Where are the systemic gaps? I think highlighting that would be absolutely sort of essential. And if I were to share a third point, sorry, it might be taking a bit more time, but a third point would be to and everybody says this, but I think it's still very, very essential: cross-sector collaboration. How do different actors come together, and how do you connect these large pools of capital that exist in 75,000 feet to connect more to the micro, the meso level? I think that's extremely essential. So that's, I would say, is a huge role that we expect from She Changes Climate and other kinds of platforms.
Thank you very much, Kanika. Yeah, there's a lot in it, and a lot, we've discussed. So we would surely pick this up subsequently with you all. Yes, Divya.
Yeah, I think we only have 3 minutes now on the clock. So I'll be very quick. I think Kanika has very well covered most of the bits. From movement, what I understand, it is a network, or it's a group of people who trust each other. It's built on trust, right? It's a network where people believe in a common cause and they kind of want to move forward together. So how I see the role of She Changes Climate, and I think I'm a part of this group called Women Climate Collective, and that's how I connected with you, Mamta, and now I'm here talking about my work. So I think that's the most crucial role that the movement like She Changes Climate has, that the opportunity for cross learning. I think I've learned fair bit from Miriam today on what they are doing in our neighboring country, right? And having such opportunities to cross learn, discussing openly about the challenges and the solutions, and being able to learn from each other and implement in our countries and see the success of it. I think it's a great way of collaboration and cross learning. The second is strengthening this whole narrative as you bring, like, as you connect with more such Divyas in your network, you will be able to strengthen that narrative on why the need for women leadership, what are the ways in which we can enable them, the way Kanika spoke of processes, etc. So building that narrative and then strengthening it at the global level, at the national level, at the subnational level, or even as local as a village level. I think that is the role that such a platform can play. Thank you.
Over to me, just a minute or
Yes,
30 seconds.
over to you, Mari. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things I've really kind of drawn inspiration from is the entrepreneurial work that all of you are doing. And I think something like this is quite amazing because we have a few entrepreneurs in Pakistan, but even with women in energy, of late, we've been getting a lot of kind of requests to kind of branch out into the business aspect of it. Because when we started out, it was purely voluntary work, and it was something that we were balancing with our actual full-time jobs. But She Changes Climate, I think one of the best things it's done is kind of throw a spotlight on all these entrepreneurs. And I think it will be amazing to kind of learn from each other's experiences. And as Kanika said, develop toolkits. Because I mean, as a professional who's worked in various capacities, I really think the kind of freedom that we're seeing in entrepreneurship, this is really quite something. Because as Kanika also said, the innovation and the solutions are there. But we kind of just need to have more women having that confidence to kind of take matters into their own hands. So I think for me, the biggest takeaway I've taken from She Changes Climate is the fact that this is a completely new avenue that's kind of being explored now, is to actually literally take on the entrepreneurial spirit and kind of build a team yourself, rather than working in an environment where you are aware of the challenges and you're working on those, but rather than manifest that through yourself and kind of bring the change that you want to see.
Thank you very much. Very useful.
Thank you. So Divya, you raised your hand. You want to say something?
I keep forgetting about this, but on toolkits, we've actually developed a toolkit, and we've also partnered with development alternatives there to add some of the case stories from their work. And this toolkit actually has actionable tools on how do you integrate women in the clean tech businesses or sustainable businesses across value chains. So just what we've been discussing, like with investors, workplaces, women as entrepreneurs, as consumers, etc. So once that is released, of course, we will get it on She Changes Climate platform as well, so that it's accessible across the world. So just wanted to
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. And I know we are over time, but there's a very interesting question. And if you can spare 1 minute to answer this, I mean, as energy projects are usually located in rural parts of the country where alcoholism and gender-based violence is fairly common, did you witness a correlation between women's economic empowerment and a subsequent reduction in gender-based discrimination and violence? So if quickly all of you can just touch upon this question. So Kanika first, thank you.
Thank you so much for asking this question. I was dying to answer, and thank you for giving us a little bit time to do that. Many instances. Will just relay one. Women who are part of the Safe Mobility network. I was having a discussion with them a couple of months ago, and they were saying and we've now trying to sort of get active data on this. But I just want to share this anecdote with this woman shared, and each of the women were vigorously nodding, where they said, have to stop drinking as much, and it's very funny because now we're stepping out of the house. Earlier there would be a little bit of a challenge in them allowing us to do that, but now that we're out, men are so I was like, why do you think that has gone? She said men are feeling challenged, that if they can do this much, what are we doing with our lives? And I thought it was a very interesting take. on how she saw it from her own eyes. But yeah, there's massive data to show that there's a real difference. On the flip side, where there is a lot of gender-based violence, particularly linked to alcoholism, a lot of women don't want to take up livelihood because the fear is that they will have to take up, there'll be much more violence and there's a lot more work one has to do towards it. But on the flip side, there are many stories.
Mariam, quickly, if you can just touch upon. You're on mute, Mariam. You're on mute.
Our work hasn't taken us to rural areas directly as yet, but as I said, our trainings are being planned. But I can only hypothetically speak that, of course, if you have women more financially empowered, as the men as well, it will directly impact, gender-based violence. I mean, COVID was a perfect example, wasn't it? When you had everybody sitting at home, there was a worldwide, spike, unfortunately, in domestic violence. So I think I mean, I can't speak personally from experiences yet, but I mean, completely agreeing with Karnika says, it makes a lot of sense. And over to Divya, perhaps, because she's been working in the rural space, so maybe she'll have
Yes.
something a bit more to offer.
Yeah, so we've not yet gathered the data per se on how the productive use of renewable energy applications are leading to reduction in gender-based discrimination and violence. But what we've looked at is how many women now feel that they've become decision makers in the household now that they are leading these nano enterprises or micro enterprises. And the number is more than 50% women users do feel that they've become decision makers. They have now savings and they're more confident to take their business forward. So that could be an indicator. But of course, this is an interesting topic, and probably in our subsequent rounds of assessments that we do, we'll try and bring up this evidence as well. But there is, of course, a clear link in terms of as women become economically empowered, the violence, etc., does have a tendency to go down. So yeah, that is what I can say.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, all of you. Such interesting discussion, and doesn't feel like, like ending it, but we'll have to. And before closing, I would humbly ask Mamta if you have anything to say or share something.
First of all, thank you so very much. I can't tell you how not just excited, I'm having goosebumps listening to. I had goosebumps throughout listening to you, not just relating, just the insights and the solutions. I have picked down so much. I have my notebook full, and we are going to sit together again and see how do we really build this movement of women entrepreneurs together. But four things actually. I mean, what really, really came out for me was this whole mention about, thinking of women as, particularly at the grassroots, as participants to owners and entrepreneurship. I think that's the byline. I mean, in the green economy, that's the byline. You have to change that mindset of women as participants to that from an entrepreneur. I love the aspirational narratives. I'm totally believe in it. In my work, also seeing that you have to build that aspirational narrative. That is what is the economic driver for the country. It's a win-win situation if you really look at aspirations in women. Network and this platform of a space for all of us to connect as women leaders. We are going to work on this and develop this. We'll be coming back to you and have more women leaders like you bonding and talking and sharing. And lastly, just the urgent need to shift the needle of climate finance power dynamics. I think this has emerged out very clearly. Thank you very, very much for such an insightful discussion. And I look forward to carrying on this conversation with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This has
Thank you
been
very
remarkable and
much.
powerful. And I want to take a moment to, thank all of you, all our panelists, and also also Mamta for the keynote, and to all our participants for this important conversation and also the question that they have raised. And we hope that today's discussion spark new ideas, foster connection, and we look forward to seeing positive impact that you will all bring to the green transition space. Thank you once again, and let's stay connected. Have a wonderful evening and hope to see you all in our future events. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.